Hey friends, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be looking at Mooncat's Cyber Set collection, which was released for their Black Friday, Cyber Monday kind of release. And this is a limited edition collection, but as of recording, it is still available. And these are 6 linear holographic shimmers. So let's get into the swatches. The first polish that I'm sharing is Electric Sheep, and this one is a periwinkle linear holographic that is filled with gold shimmer. So the shimmers in these polishes are very, very pronounced. So you'll see right away on this first swipe how intense that gold is showing up, even though you can still see through to my nail and I have bald spots. That gold is still very prominent. So I really love that about these shades. But I did have some issues with the application where I feel like some of the polishes were just a little bit thick. So you'll notice that in mainly my first coat where I'll just kind of pull away at the polish here and there and it'll just kind of create some bald spots. But thankfully on the second coat, it just covered everything right up and it gave me full opacity. And yeah, I really love this shade. This is definitely one of my favorites from the collection. Again, I think it's just so incredibly unique, not just to my collection, but just, I don't know, I haven't seen a periwinkle linear holographic shade before, so this one is definitely a standout for me. Next up is Devil's Oasis, and this one is just described as a nude linear holographic with red shimmer. So at first I thought this one was kind of more like a sandy gold, maybe a little bit of taupe, something along those lines. So yeah, it's not exactly gold. There definitely is a little bit more of that kind of brownish beige tinge to it. But yeah, that red shimmer is super prominent again. And as you can probably tell near my cuticle area, I did get those little bald spots again, which I know I mentioned was because the polishes were a little bit thick for me, but I also think maybe the main thing was that these are pretty fast drying. At least I feel that way because that's usually what causes the polish to pull in the first place. But anyway, this one was fully opaque for me in 2 coats, and you know, I'm just not crazy about this color. Next up is Robotica, and this one is a baby pink linear holographic with a pale green shimmer. And surprise, surprise, this one is my favorite from the collection. I was so excited to try this one on. You probably caught some glimpses, but I'm wearing this on like my other hand, and this one is just absolutely beautiful. I was really impressed with the coverage on this one as well. On the first coat, you can see it's nearly opaque. Like, as I'm moving my finger around, you can kind of see some nail line. So I did do a second coat, but I was still really impressed with the formula and the coverage on the first coat because it didn't give me any bald spots like the other polishes. So this one is just an absolute stunner. I cannot recommend it enough. I love the shade of pink that it is. I love that green flash. It just kind of makes it look a little opalescent or like fairy-like, ethereal. Absolutely love this one. The next polish is Encrypted, and this one is described as a dark green linear holographic with a lighter green shimmer. So at first I was like really confused by the description because I was like, this is not dark green. Like, it's like a medium green at most, but I think it's just super distracting. Like, that light green shimmer is super distracting, and it just makes it look a lot lighter than it is because, as you can see in certain angles, it's a pretty dark base. So it actually is dark green. So yeah, this one, as you can tell, did give me a little bit of those bald spots again, but on the second coat, it just completely covered it up. So I don't really think it's an issue with the formula. Maybe they're fast drying. Maybe I just didn't grab enough on the brush. I'm trying to do like thinner coats, but this one was fully opaque for me in 2 coats, and at first, I wasn't such a huge fan of it. I mean, you know, I still kind of am picky with my green polishes, but this one is really beautiful. If anything, I just really love the green shimmer and how it just contrasts against the base. The next shade is Utopia, and this one is described as a denim blue linear holographic with pink shimmer. Now, this one definitely doesn't look as bright and beautiful as it would in the sunlight. I mean, of course, holographics are going to look so much better in the sun than they do under normal desk lighting, but this one was still super bright. The unfortunate thing is that I did have some issues with the application, as you can see here, where it was just a little bit on the thicker side and maybe, again, fast drying. I'm not sure if it's just like the change in weather or something, but yeah, I still did, a second coat to cover that up, and thankfully it evened everything out. So, even if there is a bit of a rough start to your swatches, doing a second coat and of course top coat is surely going to smooth everything out. So yeah, formula aside, the color on this one is absolutely beautiful. I love how vibrant the blue base is, and again, how like that beautiful pink shimmer contrasts against it. It's really, really pretty. And rounding out the collection, we have Galactica, and this one is a purple linear holographic with a hot pink shimmer. Now, this one, as you can tell, is super vibrant, even under regular old desk lighting. So you can only imagine how insane this would look in the sun. I cannot wait to see that. But yeah, this one was really full coverage for me. It was probably because it's so highly pigmented. It's not exactly like a dark color necessarily, but it is just very intensely pigmented. So it was nearly full coverage. You could barely see some visible nail line, but I still did do 2 coats because it just didn't really feel like a true one coater. And I don't know if you could see it, or maybe it's just me, but I feel like it definitely evens out the color so much on the second coat and just really makes it, what it's supposed to look like. So yeah, this one is an absolute stunner, probably a standout from the collection for most people. I personally wasn't super crazy about this one at first, but I still cannot ignore the fact that it is like absolutely beautiful. Now moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Devil's Oasis, and I'm going to be showing it next to Mooncat's Fake Halo, which is more of a true gold linear holographic. So right away you can see how they are kind of similar, and how Devil's Oasis may kind of look a little gold in certain lightings, but their bases are different, their shimmers are different, so they're definitely not dupes and not that similar, I think, overall. So yeah, on the nail you can see Fake Halo on the right just leans a lot more yellow, a lot more gold, so yeah, not dupes. Next up for Robotica, I'm going to be comparing it to Mooncat's Not Today Satan, and this one is one of my absolute favorite shades from Mooncat. You can see it's pretty used, well, not pretty used, but compared to a lot of polishes I have, there's already a little bit of a dent in this one. So I absolutely love these shades, and they're not dupes, but it's definitely hard for me to say you don't need both, you know what I mean? So on the nail, Not Today Satan, which is on the right, is a little bit lighter and maybe a little bit more cool toned, but the main difference again is just the shimmer, where Robotica has a very intense pale green shimmer and Not Today Satan has kind of like a peachy gold shimmer. So you'll have to let me know what you think of these shades, if you would justify getting both of them, or if you have a favorite of either of these two. Next up for Encrypted, we're going to be comparing it to Mooncat's Firewall, which I honestly thought was going to be a lot more similar than it actually is. So yeah, these are absolutely not dupes, not even similar, not in the same ballpark by any means. They're also totally different formulas, where Firewall is a multi-chrome, so it's not hollow at all, but yeah, they are just super different. So I really am just so surprised by this. I thought Firewall was a little bit more green than I remembered it to be, but maybe it's just the multi-chrome. And lastly, for Galactica, I'm going to be comparing it to Mooncat's What Is My Purpose, which again, I also thought was going to be a lot more similar than it actually is. I feel like it looks almost like a hot pink here, but I remember it being more like, you know, of a deeper berry purple kind of shade. So in certain lightings, they might have a very similar tone because of the shimmer and the hollow, but as you can see, they are definitely not dupes. They have very different base colors, where Galactica is more of a darker shade, and if anything, it's just that hot pink shimmer that is more reminiscent to What Is My Purpose. So yeah, no dupes. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons for the Mooncat Cyberset collection. So as always, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this collection, especially considering that it's limited edition. But again, these are still all available both as a full collection and individually. But yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of this collection as a whole. Obviously, I do have some favorites like Electric Sheep and Robotica, which I can't recommend enough. I absolutely love them. But some of the other shades just kind of fell a little flat for me. Not necessarily because they weren't hollow enough or not shimmery enough. Like, both of those things were very intense, and even though I did have some slight issues with the application or formula, it's nothing that some thinner can't fix. So that wasn't enough, you know, for me to not like these. I think it's just the specific hues of the colors that I'm just not the biggest fan of. So I know I'm just being very, very picky here, but those are just my thoughts, and I would love to know yours down in the comments so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.